stop trying to do it all, and it's okay to ask for help. And that can be from your kids, it can be from your spouse, it can be from other mamas, it can be hiring people, like whatever that looks like for you to get
Mm-hmm.
some of those things off your plate. It's a great place to start.
Hey there, mompreneurs. This is Angela Mishuli, host of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast, where we talk about everything motherhood and business without the perfectionism. Thank you for joining me on this episode today, where I interview Laura Hernandez, the founder of Mama Systems. She helps moms create and develop systems for more peace and calm in their household. And I cannot wait to bring you that conversation. Also, happy June. You survived all of the chaos of May. Why is May so crazy? But it is. All of the end of year events and Mother's Day and graduations and all of the things. May just seems particularly busy for moms. So, congratulations for surviving it all. And before I bring you my conversation with Laura, I want to make a couple of announcements. My next podcast episode is going to have some special announcements. So I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast. It's totally free. That way you don't miss an episode. And then go ahead and leave us a review if you are enjoying the content, because then it helps other mompreneurs find the podcast and helps them and helps the show. And then it helps us know that we are creating content that resonates and is helpful to you. Also, if you know anybody who would benefit from a podcast episode, please feel free to share. I appreciate it so much. So one of the things that I love to do is kind of go over the things that you're going to learn in this episode. So, why am I going to invest almost an hour of my time, Angela? Why is this podcast interview so important? Well, here are some of the things that Laura and I discuss in this episode. We talk about why systems are so important, and I don't think that we really think about why we need to have more systems. And then we talk about using systems to manage our mental energy and to create space to connect more with our family. We talk about how to recognize where in your household you need to create systems for more calm. We talk about some of the tried and true systems for bringing peace to your home. We talk about how to get your kids involved and consistent with the systems we create. And then we talk about some of the limiting beliefs that keep us from adopting systems and doing things in a way that are easier for us and create calm. And so that's an interesting conversation. And those are just some of the high level topics that we talk about in this podcast. We talk about so much more. There's so much value in this conversation. And I want to thank Laura so much for connecting with me and having this conversation. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Laura Hernandez, the founder of Mama Systems. Welcome to the podcast, Laura. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you because you're the founder of Mama Systems and you're the mom to 10 what you call exceptional children, and I'm sure they are. I can't wait to hear a little more about that because that's an undertaking for sure. And you just realized that you had this knack for creating systems, which I need help with, and I'm sure everybody in the audience needs help with. So I can't wait to dive in. So welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So yeah, tell me about Mama Systems. I mean, it's great content. I mean, your whole freebie on clearing the counter. Hello. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is like a cluttered counter. It drives me crazy. The visual noise. So yeah, tell me how you help moms create calm out of chaos.
Yeah. So my story is kind of, we went from 4 kids to 8 kids in a 6 month
Yeah.
period, along with a cross country move. And during that time, I felt like I kind of had motherhood under control before that. And then I got 4 more kids, right?
Right.
And it was survival mode, like at the highest amount of survival mode. We had, because we were fostering, we had social workers that would just come by, and I felt like we had a dozen eyes on us, making sure that we were doing everything right and following every single rule. And
Mhm.
and if not, then they were going to come take our kids away. And like it was very stressful.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, if we can just get it to bedtime, like if I can get everybody in their cribs, I know the bar was
Right.
really low. If I can get everybody in their cribs at night, because we had 5 kids that were 4 and under, all in diapers, all in cribs. And I was like, I just got to get them in bed because they can't move once they're there. Like they
Right.
can't get up, right?
I feel less outnumbered.
I finally was like, we can't continue to live this way. We've got to put things into place here. And I started looking for systems and
Mm,
routines and different things that we could do at our home. But everybody else's was very not working for us. Say
mm-hmm.
that, right? Because nobody
Yeah,
had 8 kids. Some were special needs, social workers,
right.
therapists, out of the home, homeschool, public school. Like nobody kind of had our mix of things that we had going on. And so
Wow.
finally it was like, we've just got to figure this out. And
Mm-hmm.
I just sat down one day and like started listing out all the things I wanted to be doing, all the things we were doing, all the things that
Mm-hmm.
needed to be done, and kind of started prioritizing and getting rid of some things. And kind of the process I walked through to create systems for us that have worked so well for us. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
process I get to through walk through with moms now in mama systems. And I one day was sitting, and we subsequently had 2 more kids, if you're doing the math there. But I was sitting in our living room, and I was drinking a glass of wine. It was like 7 o'clock, and everybody had their pajamas on, and the house was clean, and they were watching a show. And it kind of felt like, kind of like what your face is doing right now. That's what it felt like. It was like, this is so wonderful. And it feels like I hit a
Mm-hmm.
jackpot, like, right? Of
Yeah.
what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we've got to, I feel like I need to share this with other people because this is so great, right? And every
Mm-hmm.
mom needs this.
Yeah.
I eventually started helping friends, and then realized how much I absolutely love it. And now I get to help everybody else too. So
That's awesome. I mean, and hats off to you. That is like incredible. One, that you would be willing to open your home to so many children that are, are not yours. People can hardly or fostering and adopting. I mean, that's incredible. But I think it's a testament to at some point you just trusted yourself to figure it out. Like it was more about what you wanted to accomplish and what was important to you than getting stuck in like how are we going to do this. You were just like we're going to figure this out and you trusted yourself. And I think so many moms don't allow themselves to do that. It's like, so I hope that, what we learn in this podcast will help give more moms permission to not only, create calm in their life and trust themselves to do that, but to start and grow their businesses and do those things too. So that's just incredible. So, why are systems so important? Because I think a lot of moms think that that's for somebody else, or they don't think that they can learn how to do it. So, can you just explain like why it's so important to have systems in place?
yes, I can. Um, this is obviously what I think, but I kind of view systems as anything that's taking the brain power away from me, right?
Yeah,
Where I'm not having to think and make decisions at all times,
it's a
because
really
that
great way to put it.
decision
Yeah.
is so real, right? By the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
we're just done. And so the
Mm-hmm.
less things we have to decide during the day, the better off I am,
Yeah.
the better I feel, the calmer I am with my kids. And truly, what I've learned, as crazy as this may sound, it's really all about the mama.
Yeah.
It's all about you. Like the
Mm-hmm.
old saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Like I'm like, yes, that is very true. That is a very
Right.
true statement. But so if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm snappy at my people, they're then in a bad mood. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just nothing goes as planned. So setting ourselves up for success
Mm-hmm.
and less decision fatigue throughout the day is so, so important. So
Yes. Totally. And I think that we concentrate so much on the physical energy of things and don't give importance to the mental energy that things take from us. That is just as important, if not more important,
yeah, and I
preserving
think
that.
you were talking about a lot of moms saying that they don't need that. That's for somebody else. I
Yeah.
think that I've worked with a lot of moms that like, wow, I'm really flexible and like to fly by the seat of my pants and like
Oh,
spontaneity. And I'm like, that's amazing.
how's that
You can
working?
still do that, right? Like, well, you can still have that spontaneity. Like, right? If somebody calls you up and wants to go to the park or a family calls you up and wants to go to dinner, like, awesome,
Mm-hmm.
amazing. But then having systems in place around those things that
Mm-hmm.
create anchors in your day where you have a plan of like, hey, if somebody calls us for dinner, we know that the dinner I have ready in the microwave or in the oven or whatever is just going to go in the fridge and we'll eat that the next day. Like having those things planned out
Mm-hmm.
is not makes it so that you're not making those decisions because everybody's making those decisions all day long, right? Like you're going to make those decisions anyway. And so why not make them earlier on where
Mm-hmm.
you have sound mind, where you're not snippy at your kids, where you're not frustrated and overwhelmed by the chaos of the home.
Yeah.
You make those decisions beforehand and be a little more proactive about it and things go so much smoother and there's more
Oh,
peace and you're calmer. Yeah.
oh yeah, you don't really make really good decisions when you feel like that either.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. And then you regret it later and you're like, dang it.
Yeah, a study that I
No.
often reference whenever we're talking about decision fatigue is that there was this one study done on parole judges, and I realized that probably none of us are in this situation, but these parole judges at the beginning of the day were 70% likely to give a prisoner parole. And by the end of the day, they were only 10% likely. Like by the end of the day, they were just done and they were just putting people back in prison, right? Which I can kind of relate to a little bit where I'm like, go to bed, just stop
Right.
trying to go to bed.
Right.
Just all the grace is gone out of me by the end of the day. So
That's a really interesting statistic because yeah, that really says a lot about, where we are in our decision making process as the day goes on. For sure. So I would love to hear about like um, how can we develop and recognize the systems that we need in our house? Like, what's the red flag that you need a system?
yeah, I think that it's a lot of that noticing in your body where you feel that stress.
Mm-hmm.
So if the most stressful part of the day for you is getting people out of the door in the morning, out of
Oh
the
yeah.
door, getting them out the door. Hmm, I don't know about that. Um, Getting them to school, getting them gone, getting your kids.
We definitely struggle
If
with
that's
that
the
some
most
days.
stressful part, then let's put a system
Yeah,
around that. And
right.
let's see if it helps. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be like once you figure out something for your home and your family, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you're doing that forever and ever. Like you can try it for a little bit, and if it doesn't work, figure out
Mm,
something else. Let's just keep trying, right? Um,
right.
yeah, so I think that those red flags of like how you're feeling, your stress level throughout the day, I think as a mama, we often know what those things are. For me, it's when my kids
Yeah.
come in the door after school and everything just kind of escalates. We've gone from this
Oh
calm,
yeah.
quiet house to like everyone just walked in and it's like that. And they all want to talk and they all want to snack. And that's stressful for me. And so creating
Right.
systems is wonderful.
Yes, I can definitely relate with that too. So, what are some of your tried and true systems for bringing the peace to your house? Because I know we all need some.
Yeah, I love just thinking about our day and having
Hmm.
bookends on our day. So if we
Hmm.
can get a great evening routine down,
Mm.
which then feeds into the morning routine, and then having a great
Hmm.
morning, yeah, right? Those are times where we can connect with our kids and we can be in a great space to connect with our kids, and setting
Hmm.
ourselves up for success in all of those things.
Hmm.
What that looks like for us is our evening routine feeds a lot of our morning routine. And
Hmm.
by that, I mean that like we have our evening routine starts at 5 o'clock and
Hmm.
we have an alarm go off. And this alarm is to help me remember what time it is and that I need to get in the kitchen and start cooking. Because I will often go till 7:30 or something and be like, oh, it's time for bed. Oh, I haven't fed anybody. Oh, that's why everybody's, oh, I see. Like
Yeah.
it's like I've never done this mom thing before, you know? And this happens all the time if I don't pay attention to my clock,
Yes.
right? So that 5 o'clock alarm helps me go in there. It also signals the kids that they have 5 o'clock jobs and that they need to hop up and do their 5 o'clock jobs. And those 5 o'clock
Mhm.
jobs are kind of threefold. Everybody has a different job. They have to get ready for school the next day. So laying out clothes, shoes, glasses, socks, all the little nitty gritty stuff that we end up running around for in the morning. They need to make their lunch. Then number two is something for dinner. So either they're helping set the table or serve plates or get drinks ready. Everybody has their specific thing that they're in charge of. And then number three, everybody has a zone that they're in charge of. And these zones are really helpful for me because I know that when I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, it goes all back to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I wake up in the morning and I'm tripping over all the kids' stuff, like when I'm walking to my chair where I have my little quiet morning time, it fires me up. There's been several times where I'm like, there's a skateboard on the ground and I'm like falling to the ground. Like nobody wants to wake up that way, right? And so thinking through those things of like, how do I want to wake up in the morning? What do I want the house to look like? Okay, let's delegate some of those things out. So if I want the living room picked up, what needs to happen in the living room? And just kind of staying curious and digging a little bit deeper every time. But for me, I'm like the living room, that means blankets and pillows are picked up off the floor. And so
Mm-hmm.
I need to give that job to somebody. And I'm going to get real specific in what I'm assigning kids to do so that expectations are set clearly, not only for them, but for
Mm-hmm.
me as well. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question is like how do you get them involved? And not only do we how do we start to teach our kids these systems, but how do we keep them motivated to like continue to do it? Because I could see my kids doing this for a day or two, but then like bloop, the
yeah,
drop
I
off.
think a lot of it depends on us and our expectations and our consistency.
Right. Oh.
And I know that that's so hard. Like, wouldn't it be great if our kids were robots and we could just
Right.
program them to do what we want? They're not. But it is our job to teach them to be
Mhm.
responsible, to
Mhm.
know how to take care of their stuff, to know how to clean up, to know like how to take care of their body. All of those things we want our kids to be able to do when they leave our house, right?
Mhm.
I like to think of those things as roommate responsibilities. So when we're kind of analyzing everything that we're doing in life and how we want our home to run and the systems we want to set up, like
Mhm.
be thinking that big picture of how do I want them to leave the house when they're living with someone else? What kind of roommate do I want them to
Yeah.
be?
Mhm.
Because that's they're learning it here in our home, right?
Mhm. For
I
sure.
in college I had a friend whose roommate was a disaster. I mean, a complete disaster. Like you'd walk into the room and like the door would like be stuck because there'd be so much stuff in the room, and she'd have to like make a line and like, push stuff to the other side. And I always just envisioned that girl, and I'm just thinking about like I don't think her mom ever told her how to clean up. Like I don't think that that was ever a chore or a job at her house, right? And so I want our kids to know how to do that and
Mhm.
not like they just know it, but that they actually do it and execute on
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And know that that's just a part of you're a human being living in this world. Let's show up and take care of yourself.
Right.
So, all that being said, I think getting real specific with our kids
Mhm.
about what they need to do. And so
Mhm.
for some of my little buddies, that's just in the morning, you need to brush your teeth. You need to put your pull up in the trash. You need to get dressed, like very, very basic things, right?
Mhm.
Um, and my goal is not to be telling them this every morning,
Mm.
but for them to have that category of, hey, let's get ready for school. And they know what needs to happen, right? And so that probably
Mhm.
looks like a chart or something like that as you're starting out.
Mhm.
And there's really clear expectations.
Right. Yeah. And I think that that is too, I think a lot of parents, and I've done this too, is just kind of gotten upset at times that they don't assume that I want them to clean up or whatever. And they're just kind of confused by that. And I think that that element of being really clear and specific about expectations and communicating instead of being more emotional about it is really important. And I think we get lost in that
Yeah,
that emotion and
absolutely.
reaction to just being so overwhelmed and frustrated. and forget to have the calmer organizational conversation ahead of time.
Yes. So I think like if you're talking about the overwhelm, I think
Hmm.
about going into a room and it's a complete disaster. And I'm like, guys, I need you to clean this room up. And then I walk away, right?
Right.
And then I come back and it looks exactly the same. And
Exactly.
the deal is that they're overwhelmed too. They have no idea. And they're like, I did clean
Hmm.
it up. I did this. And no, it's not clean. And you go back and forth and you
Hmm.
get more frustrated with them and they're more
Hmm.
frustrated with you. And so instead, just kind of viewing it as like, this is a lot. And let's just say we have 2 or 3 kids and we're going to just kind of divide things up
Hmm.
and not like buy the room because then we would just throw stuff to the other side of the room. Right. So we're not
Hmm.
doing that. But hey, you're in charge of picking up all the Legos. Okay. I need you to pick up all the baby dolls and all the kitchen stuff and
Hmm.
just get real clear and real specific. So that way, when you come back in,
Hmm.
it's the hope is that kids aren't fighting about who picked up what or
Right.
whatever because you're just in charge of Legos. I just need you to take care of your stuff. I'll deal with her. She's gonna do baby dolls. If she doesn't do it right now, there'll be a consequence for her. Like we can
Yeah.
work those things out, right? But
Hmm.
just their expectations helps everyone win.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really interested to hear about how you use systems with meal planning because that too is like this huge stress about what are
Mhm.
we going to make? When are we going to make it? Who likes what? I have no
Yes.
idea how you accomplish that with so many different mouths to feed and different, I'm sure preferences and all of that stuff. So, how do you approach meal planning?
Yeah. Well, when I'm coaching mamas on how to approach meal planning, it is
Hmm.
more what's most important to you.
Right.
Is feeding your people on a budget, or is it that you're all sitting down at the table together? Is it a home cooked
Mm,
meal? Do you need to
mm,
be eating clean and organic? Are there a bunch of dietary restrictions? Like what is the most important thing to you? Because what is important to me is probably not what's important to you, right?
mm.
So
That's very
we're
true.
starting there. And then from there, we're going to go with what do we know? Like, do
Hmm.
we know that if I feed my kids fish, that they will not touch it and make gagging noises the whole time? Yes, I do know that. Like, we have that in our repertoire of knowledge, right? So, thinking about the things that you know about your kids and what's true about them,
Hmm.
and then we start the planning.
Mm. Hmm.
Then, when we go into meal planning, I love to kind of have a set menu for the week. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is not like every Tuesday we're eating spaghetti and it's going
Hmm.
to be same spaghetti sauce.
Hmm.
But like, what if we did a pasta night on Tuesday? And
Hmm.
so then we did different pasta dishes. So I probably have like 15 pasta dishes in my head right now that I could spit
Hmm.
out to you, right? And so picking just one of those that I'm going to put on Tuesday night. And
Hmm.
how this helps is that there's so many things that I'm like, we don't have to go to our big library of all of our meals that we have. We don't
Right.
have to go pull out all these cookbooks. Like, I know I have these dishes in my head that
Hmm.
I can from, and I can write down a pasta dish that we're going to have.
Hmm.
And it's that simple, right? So every day we have kind of a themed meal plan, and we'll do
Mm.
like a taco night, which again is not just tacos, it's like fajitas and quesadillas and
Hmm.
whatever, right? But things I know my kids like, then kind of go narrow it down from there. So
Mm.
I think that helps
Yeah.
so much in just the decision fatigue and the
Hmm.
overwhelm, kind of just having that set meal plan.
Yeah, I think if you approach anything into smaller pieces and bites that are less overwhelming, you're definitely going to achieve greater success. For
Absolutely.
sure. So, how how are some of the other approaches that you specifically kind of help moms learn how to tame the chaos in their house specifically? And it sounds like it's probably related to the meal planning in that you kind of have to have a sense of like what's important to your family. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, I that's a big piece is kind of in
Yeah.
encouraging the mama to think about what they want in their home
Mhm.
and family and how they want to spend their time. Because I think so
Mhm.
often we live such reactionary lives that we just go from thing to thing and it's dealing with a crying kid, dirty diaper, soccer practice, like all these things that are going on around us,
Mhm.
trying to get the next thing done that needs to get done. And we don't
Mhm.
even know what we're doing or why we're doing it.
Yep.
So I think that pausing for a hot minute whether that's like, hey, I need to get away for a weekend and kind of rethink our whole house, or
Mm-hmm.
going and getting coffee for an hour. Like
Mm-hmm.
just taking a beat and figuring out what's really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I want to be running around to soccer practices? I keep picking on soccer, and I'm so sorry. I don't have anything against soccer.
Yeah.
But do I want to be running around soccer practice? Like, do I want our weekends to be dictated by soccer? My answer would be no. But some families, they love sports, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
they love spending their weekend, and they spend great quality time together, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what they want. And so, again, every mama is so different, every family is so different. And so just knowing those things about you helps
Yeah.
keep the focus on you in your home, and not to be looking around others and
Mm-hmm.
seeing that everyone else on the street has their kids in a soccer team. And so therefore you need to too, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but if we can just keep our eyes on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and start there, figuring out what's important to you, I think is a great place to start. And then from there, realizing the things that are going on in your house,
Mm-hmm.
what of those things gives you life and what drains you out of those things?
Mm-hmm.
No, and then we're going to prioritize the things that give us life, and the things that drain us, we're going to try to get rid of altogether.
I think that that is a really important lesson, and one that I myself had to learn last summer. We were kind of like on this treadmill with activities and just kind of assuming them and thinking that, well, we have to do this, right? Not considering until my husband looked at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" Like, and I just stopped and I was like, no. Like, I was on my last thread and we really had to evaluate what was important to us. And we were able to offload a lot of stress by saying no to some commitments when the fall came. And it was wonderful. It still makes me kind of sad because I love those activities and I thought they were great for my kids, but we realized they were absolutely draining us. So I love that, you're suggesting that we not only just look at the process that's going on in our house, but the things that we're doing that's adding stress and taking our time and taking our energy, because that is so true. And realize, especially if you're paying for an activity or something, like, you know, you're not obligated to. It is your life. You have to protect your time, your energy. I talk about that so much because I was a person that was trying to do everything all the time for everybody. And you're just gonna like totally deplete yourself if you do that. So I 100% back that up for sure. Um, So, when you go to moms and talk to them about the systems that you suggest or the approach that they should take to create what they need to create more calm, I'm sure you get some resistance, right?
Well, actually, the majority of the mamas I work with are
Uh-huh.
moms that just feel completely overwhelmed,
Right.
and they've tried everything, and that
Mm-hmm.
they're just wanting a change. And so
Right. Well, that's
um,
good to hear.
it's good to
That
hear.
is,
Um,
yeah. But, I'm sure along the way, we all have our limiting beliefs. So, I'd love to hear what are some of those limiting beliefs that you think are maybe keeping us from adopting better systems? Because I think it's really a mindset shift to think that it can be easier, right? And we deserve that. Like, we think everything has to be hard, and it
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, I think it's just knowing that we're worth it.
Yeah.
Like we're worth that piece. We're worth the work to put into
Mhm.
our home. We're worth the energy, the money, the everything to put into our home so that we can
Mhm.
have a peaceful life. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of moms um, that I do work with kind of believe the lie, like I should be able to do it all, because that's the lie that's been being fed to us, right? And
Wow.
the
Yeah.
truth is that nobody has ever been able to do it all. And
Mm.
thousands of years, people have had villages and families and community around them that have helped
Mhm.
them. And then I'm working with a mom who has no family around her, no friends, no neighbors, and she's
Mm.
doing everything. And she's doing everything. And
Yeah.
she thinks that I should be able to do this. I should be able to keep my house clean, work a full-time job, homeschool my kids, like all the things that we put on ourselves. I'm like,
Mm.
no, this is not okay. We can delegate some of these things out because you shouldn't be able to do it all. Like that's not healthy for you or for anybody else. So I think those would be the two limiting beliefs that I hear the most.
That, I mean, I used to be a military spouse, and that was definitely, we didn't have family around, and I did have to do everything myself, but you have to make exceptions, right? You can't do it on an A plus level all the time. Like something's got to give. And, while we're talking about this, I always like to talk about somebody's thoughts on this whole idea that there's work life balance. Do you believe that even exists? Or what are your thoughts on like
Interesting, right?
achieving the work life balance?
I think those boundaries are really important.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if there's like a perfect work-life balance, right? I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
gonna get to the end of my life and be like, I wish I would spend 10 more minutes with my kids every day instead of
Yeah.
working that last
Yeah.
10. I don't know. I don't know
Right.
if that will happen or if that'll ever be achieved, but every day I feel like I'm trying to show up and do my best
Hmm.
here at my job and then disconnecting from that around the time that they get home so
Hmm.
that I can then go be present with them. And
Sure.
so when I get caught up in it, when I know that I'm like obsessing too much about a project or something like that, like I can be aware of those things, right? You know,
Hmm.
I've been working way too much here. And so thinking about, okay, when am I tempted to do that? What are the triggers for that? How does that really affect our family? Because once you kind of see those connections of our kids have a much harder time when I'm in my office working all day and don't come
Hmm.
out till 6 o'clock at night, opposed to me coming out at 3 and hanging out with them and spending time with them, right?
Hmm.
I think when you can start making those connections, it becomes easier to set up those boundaries and those boundaries become clear for you and your family.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that the self-awareness part is so key because nobody can come to you and say, "Here, do this, and here's your plan, and it'll work for you." You really truly have to find what it is that works for you and your family because every family has different needs. It's like, and you have children that are different ages and need different levels of, interaction in your time, and so that is, really key for sure. But I would love to hear about, you know, your journey on starting to help moms with this, and how was it that you gained the confidence to do that? Did you struggle with your confidence to start helping moms in this way because so many moms don't think that they're good enough? And so yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yes. I feel like I have struggled in the past, and I feel like the little lies of self-doubt are
Right.
often there, right? Just always speaking to me of
Oh,
like, you're not
sure.
good enough. Who do you think you are? Kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of counseling and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of work on
Mm-hmm.
myself and past trauma and like false beliefs about myself.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that that has been really the key. So it hasn't really had to do anything with business.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to a place where I have voice and I can use it and what I
Mm-hmm.
have matters
Mm-hmm.
and people, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because even if
Oh,
we're just one step ahead of somebody else, we can help them.
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, we talk about it on the podcast how becoming an entrepreneur is like the best therapy because you just can't hide from anything. Like
Yeah.
if you're hitting a wall in your business, you know that it's you. Like your business is only going to grow and flourish as much as you do personally. So, I mean, it absolutely is a whole personal development journey, and anything that we're not having the courage to do in our business, it's related to some hidden fear that we have from like our childhood or whatever. I mean, it's so tough. But so what are some of the ways where you started out, because I get a lot of questions about like the increments and the steps that you take, and I help clients with that, but I think they find it so comforting to hear that they're not alone in their self-doubt, that they're not alone in their fears, and their hesitations, and they know what they want to create, but they just don't know how to take that approach, or they feel so comforted in hearing somebody else sharing their journey about that. So, what was kind of like your journey? You mentioned that you started first helping friends and family, I think you said. And then, so how is it that you decided to create? I think you have courses now and different things like that. So, what was it that you did? Did you make an investment in education? Did you do something like that that really kind of then started propelling you forward?
Yes. There's so many answers to those questions. Um, I started just, I just made it up. Like I had no idea what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who did anything like
And you
this.
survived and you were fine and you're flourishing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just trying things. And I mean, there have been some
Mm-hmm.
things that I've invested money in, and I'm like, oh, that was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have done that. Or, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't know that until you get to the other side. So there's been
Right.
other things I've invested money in. I'm like, yes, this has
Mm-hmm.
absolutely changed me and I've changed my business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think that we know those things. I'm not telling you to go waste money on things by any stretch of
Yeah,
the
sure.
imagination, but I don't think we know what's going to work or what's not going to work until we try it. And so
Mm-hmm.
every experience that we take in
Yeah.
our business is just a learning opportunity to figure out, hey, what's going to work for me? What's
Mm-hmm.
going to work for my business, my audience, my people? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I able to get in front of them and give them the things that they need? And so for me, that looked like courses. Like I knew that I couldn't be spending as much time. I had kind of an explosion of clients, not implosion, explosion of clients. A lot of people all at once. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I realized I can't keep going at this momentum. So I'm going to need to figure out a different way. So creating a separate price point that was a little bit cheaper that could host more people. So we
Mm-hmm.
kind of just started with these small little things, creating a mini course first to see how that went, and then creating a master course. And so it's just kind of grown over time. And then all of those
Mm-hmm.
offerings are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just trying things because it's
Yeah.
not stuck in stone, like we can ebb and flow and things can change. And
Mm-hmm. Well, so much of like what we talked about creating a system for your house and your home, it applies to business. You just kind of
mm,
have to test things and figure out what works for you, because there truly is no one system that's going to work for everybody. There's no one way to start and grow a successful business. But I would love to hear your thoughts on like what types of things were the most valuable to you in hindsight to invest your time and your energy in.
I think, I mean, definitely listening to podcasts and just
Oh,
listening to different podcasts and
yes.
hearing their wisdom and just kind of attaining all the free resources I could
Mm-hmm.
has been huge. Like just
Yeah.
kind of going through their exercises and whatever like free workbook, whatever they had, like
Mm-hmm.
just goes up, right? And I think those were so helpful and just
Mm-hmm.
helping me craft how I think about business and how
Mm-hmm.
because like, I didn't have like a business degree or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really have no idea what I'm doing. Like it's to business, I'm clueless. I don't know. I just know that I love moms and I love systems and I want to help
Mm-hmm.
moms. That's what I got.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have this experience. Like those are the things. But other than that, I'm like, I don't know how to do taxes. I don't know how to,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. And so
Mm-hmm.
always trying to learn, always trying to glean more wisdom and figure things out. And sometimes there's people that say, I think this is the way. And you spend money on them and you're like, I don't think that was the way. That didn't get me what I thought it would. And so it's just kind of trial and error.
Right. That's why I spend a lot of time with my clients trying to get them to kind of center on them getting to know themselves. So when those opportunities come up to learn something new, that they're better able to identify whether this is going to work for them or not. you
Yes,
know?
very wise.
Right. Because it's like, yes, everybody's going to tell you their way is the best way for the most part. And I say be leery of those people, because usually it's just not. You want somebody to teach you to think for yourself
Mhm.
and to be self-sustaining. Like you don't want somebody to be, dependent on you to figure out everything in your business or whatever you're trying to learn. But Yeah, I mean, I think that that's just really wise and, just having the courage to try different things. You have to have that. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Or even sometimes you can modify something that you learn to work for you in a
Mm.
different way than maybe you had first intended. I really love that. Um, so how do you think becoming an entrepreneur has really changed you and, you know, changed your life? And can you imagine having not taken that, like what your life would be like?
No, I can't. And I think of it as like we're all called for something, right? Like
Right.
we have like our experiences
Yeah.
and then our future hope of whatever we will be. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. Oh my goodness, we're supposed to step into this person
Right.
apart from our shame, apart from the negative voices, apart from all of
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
and to fully parent, fully give the world what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. I've been thinking about this a lot, which is why I'm getting kind of weird about it.
No, I
I
love it. I love to hear
keep
it. Like,
thinking about just like this paper doll of sorts
mm-hmm.
that is like the fullest version of you, like how you
Yeah.
think everything about you great is
Mm-hmm.
on this paper doll, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
there's all these voices of shame and doubt and guilt and all these things. And so it's kind of like a stomper, stomping it out, right? And
Right.
once you have all of that on you, you can't tell this beautiful person. So once you can start to shed those shames and
Right.
those doubts and like just every day grabbing a little bit more courage and stepping into that,
Yeah.
what great things we could do for this world if we all showed up that way, you know?
Right. And I mean, for me personally, and part of the reason I started this podcast is that it's so fascinating to me that moms, givers of life and nurturers, and we keep people alive. And there's for some reason, despite all of the wonderful things we do, we don't give ourselves credit, but we also for some reason use that as an excuse not to do the great things that we're meant to do. I mean, I think I will be forever on a quest to figure that out because it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we have all of these transferable skills that we just don't give ourselves credit for, and managing our homes and managing that we can use to manage a business, to go out and teach people things like you are that greatly impacts their life and changes it and allows them to probably make space for other things or at least live a more peaceful and happier life. I mean, what? That's amazing. But we deny ourselves that ability when we just kind of get caught up in the shame and the fear and the doubt. And, it's just, you have to find yourself at this point where you have to choose, do I want to continue to play small and not share my um gifts with the world? But I find it so interesting too. Have you seen an impact on your children as you've developed and grown as an entrepreneur? Because we
Man,
don't like,
a loaded question. I haven't thought about that.
yeah, yeah, because we're not entrepreneurs or mompreneurs in a vacuum,
Yeah.
and there's this concept of expander parenting where, we can tell our children all day, go and be your best self, you can do and be whatever you want. But if we're not exhibiting that ourselves and living our most expanded lives, that says volumes.
Yeah. I would hope I haven't seen any fruits from this yet, but there have been
Yeah.
so many times where I've shared with my kids hard
Mm-hmm.
things that I've done, like things I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared to do, and
Yeah.
things that like calling up somebody out of the blue or something like that
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
really hard for me. And it makes me feel very anxious, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in the long run will do
Mm-hmm.
amazing things for them to know that, hey, my mom can do hard things. And
Right.
sometimes we just got to step out and do it. And
Right.
we'll just see how it goes, right? And teaching them
Right.
that flexibility and all the skills for life.
Yeah, I saw a recent statistic where more than 50% of people will kind of have a gig rather than a job, and I think what you and I do and exhibit to our children really is going to help prepare them for that type of economy where there's going to be less traditional worker roles where you have, you just show up and you do your job and you collect your paycheck and whatever. It's going to be kind of businesses are popping up kind of like an Uber for a job, and where you have somebody who has a skill and you have somebody who needs that person and they connect and work on project based tasks and then they move on to the next or whatever. So I think it's so interesting that that is where the economy is headed, and I think it's been headed there for a while. But really, the skills I think they're learning in school, for the most part, may not necessarily give them the pragmatic ability to adapt to that necessarily if they don't have somebody modeling that. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that recently. I was like, yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And then I talked to a mom on the podcast where they actually their son um, completed their college application about his mom being an entrepreneur. And I mean, it was like, wow, that's just like so fascinating. And really, even if they don't tell us or say
Yeah.
anything, I think we're definitely making an impression. So that will be interesting to see how the mompreneur movement is going to affect
Yeah. The next
future
generation.
generations.
Fascinating.
For sure. Yeah. So, I would love to hear the wisdom or takeaway that you would like to give to anybody who's listening to this podcast episode and what you want them to walk away with on whatever their endeavors are.
Yeah. I think that it's okay to ask for help.
Oh,
Like, I think
gosh.
that would be my biggest encouragement to everybody. Stop
Yeah.
trying to do it all, and it's okay to ask for help. And that can be from your kids, it can be from your spouse, it can be from other mamas, it can be hiring people, like whatever that looks like for you to get
Mm-hmm.
some of those things off your plate.
Yeah.
I think it's a great place to start.
Gosh, it's so hard for us too, isn't it? It's just like we do. I mean, we want to try to do it all of the time, and it's just impossible, yet we still keep trying.
I know. And I definitely think it takes practice to be able to have that mindset of delegating things out, right?
Right.
Um, I
Yeah.
think like it's taken a while, but this morning we're going camping in a little bit, and I'm thinking about all the things
Nice.
I need to do,
Mm-hmm.
and my going list in my head, and I'm like, okay, I can delegate that to this person. I can give this person that job. Okay, I can, and pretty much everything on the list I delegated out by the time I'd driven home from the doctor this morning. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, that was easy. So I'm
Yeah.
like not doing any of it. I'm having kids and husband and babysitter help with all of those things.
There
And
you go.
that used to not be the case. And so I say that to encourage
Yeah.
that we can get there if we can start seeing ourselves as a manager of our home
Yeah.
and less of like the servant of all of our home, right?
That's a powerful statement right there. That really is. Seeing ourselves as a manager instead of like the doer. That's really powerful. I love that. And then I realized too that I would love to start asking guests on the podcast, especially the moms, what do you do for yourself in all of this? What do you do for yourself? Like what fills your bucket? Because I think sometimes people have a loss, they need ideas.
Yes. Well, this is one of those things I would love. I have a self-care guide that I would love to share with you.
Oh, awesome. Yes.
And it walks you through how to think about self-care for you
I
because
love
what
that.
works for you will
See?
not work for me, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so taking that minute again and figuring out
Mm-hmm.
what's you, what fills you up,
Mm-hmm.
if you feel most depleted, and how can you kind of get to a better space in that?
Right.
And then setting up systems around those things.
Yeah.
So for me, on a daily basis, I need my quiet time, and
Mm-hmm.
that's negotiable. And
Mm-hmm.
so that means I'm waking up a little bit earlier. It means
Mm.
that things in the house are kind of picked up so that I'm not walking out to a huge mess that needs my attention, right? So there's different things that I need to do to prep around that to
Mm-hmm.
save that little space for me to protect that.
Mm-hmm.
Every week, my husband and I do date night. So just planning that out and having a babysitter here. Every week, I do counseling and
Mm-hmm.
planning that out, make sure there's a babysitter here. Like different things like that that are, I know I need these things.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing may not give you life. Like it might drain the tar out of you to go spend an hour with your husband. And maybe that's an okay place to be right now. Like just to recognize that and realize like I don't need a date night with my husband every
Yeah.
week. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you need? And how
Right.
can we make it happen? So self-care guide helps you do just that,
I love
figure out what
that.
you need for it and then ask for help around it.
That's awesome. I really love that. And we'll definitely share that in the show notes. So, where can listeners connect with you and find all your goodness and be part of be part of your circle?
Yeah, so mamasystems.net is my website. And
Uh-huh.
then on Instagram, Mama
Hmm.
Systems.
I
Super
love
easy.
Yeah, I love that. I thank you so much for your time. I'm inspired to like think more purposeful. I'm always in like the state of reassessment. And I think when you're a business owner, you kind of naturally are inclined to be that way. But I definitely know that there are some points that I need to work on for sure.
I think that's a great place to be of just always reassessing and figuring out okay, what needs to be tweaked or changed. How can we show up
Right.
better in the situation? So
Oh yeah, definitely
good
always
job.
trying to be better for sure. But no, I love this conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you again so much to Laura Hernandez for joining me on a conversation on the podcast. There was so much to learn from her, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed it as much as I did. And be sure to leave us a review if you love this episode. If you're finding it helpful, it helps other people find the podcast, and then it helps me know that the content I'm creating is resonating with you. And then also be sure to subscribe. Next episode is our 50th episode. I cannot believe it. And you're not going to want to miss that episode because I'm going to have some special announcements. And then I have more amazing women mompreneurs guests coming your way to share more valuable information on how you can start and grow your business as a mom and really learn those mental blocks and mental shifts. Get those out of the way so you can thrive as an entrepreneur. So, this is your host, Angela Mishuli, with the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. Thank you so, so much for joining me on this episode. And I can't wait to talk to you next time. And I hope you have a fabulous week. Bye.